In the vast, untamed stretch of Montana just outside Whitefish, where jagged Rockies pierce an endless sky and the boundary between wild and domestic blurs, Ben Turner lived alone with only his German shepherd, Rex, for company. For years, Rex had been Ben's shadow in the thick of pines and sprays of morning mist, a constant in the lonely rhythm of his days. Yet suddenly, one crisp autumn morning, Rex vanished into the trees, only to reappear minutes later, cradling a trembling bundle of spotted fur in his jaws. Say. Had the dog succumbed to some primal instinct? Ben followed him, heart pounding, expecting to find the aftermath of a hunt, only to discover something that would shake every belief he held about nature, loyalty, and the invisible threads that sometimes bind different species together. What Rex had done next would unravel a secret so astonishing that it lay hidden beneath Montana's quiet beauty, waiting to be unearthed. Ben hadn't always been the solitary man, pacing these woods. He and his wife, Sarah, had once shared a bustling life in Seattle, where he fought for the environment in courtrooms that never slept, and she captured its rugged elegance through her camera lens. Dreams of escaping concrete and chaos led them to this 10-acre haven, backing onto protected wilderness. Their young daughter Emma played among wildflowers by day, while at night Sarah and Ben planned a future as wide as the horizon. But winter in Montana could be cruel. On a hidden patch of black ice 5 years ago, Sarah was driving Emma home from ballet, the dashboard's warmth failing to thaw the road's lethal sheen. Their imminent stop for hot chocolate became their last conversation. 3 hours later, a state trooper stood at Ben's door, speaking of instantaneous impact and mercy, but Ben felt none. He abandoned his thriving practice, retreating into reports and data in hopes that logic could numb the ache that the world's weight had left on his chest. It was Ben's sister, Janet, who forced him back into life. Go on, she'd said softly as snow sifted outside the shelter windows. Just look around. You don't have to adopt, but you need something alive here, besides your grief. There, behind a chain-link fence, sat Rex, his brown eyes calm, patient, as if he understood the loss that lay heavy in Ben's own gaze. In Rex's quiet dignity, Ben saw a mirror of his sorrow and a glimmer of companionship he thought he'd lost forever. So, they left together that day. Two kindred souls bound by the knowledge that life rarely follows our plans, yet sometimes hands us new paths in the depths of despair. Morning walks transformed from duty into discovery, as Ben learned to notice the forest's breath again, the hush of pine needles underfoot, the pale light filtering through larches, the distant rush of a mountain stream. Yet when October rolled in, with cool winds and amber light, Rex changed. His gaze fixed on the north fence line, beyond which Carter Walsh's estate stood like a fortress. 50 acres ringed by high walls, cameras scanning every inch, rumours swirling that the reclusive millionaire had fortunes as dark as his compound's forbidding paint. Where Rex once trotted beside him contentedly, now he tugged toward that forbidden zone, his restlessness a siren call Ben could no longer ignore. Late one Thursday, as the setting sun painted the sky in rose and amber, a feeble cry lured Ben into his home office. There, nestled in Rex's soft blanket, lay a tiny bobcat cub, its fur matted, body trembling with exhaustion. Confusion and dread knotted in Ben's gut. This was no routine wildlife rescue. The cub's unnaturally clean coat and faint collar marks spoke of human hands, of cruelty hidden from view. In that instant, Ben realised this was no act of nature but a plea for help that demanded action, and he knew he could not turn away. The next evening, heart racing, Ben trailed Rex through gathering dusk along Walsh's perimeter. The dog led him to a row of modified shipping containers, metal sentinels looming in the twilight. From within came muffled cries and shuffling sounds that spoke of terrified creatures confined behind steel walls. Before Ben could step closer, a figure slipped from one container. Maria Rodriguez, Walsh's housekeeper, tears staining her cheeks, a small wooden trait hugged to her chest. Maria's voice trembled as she unfolded the horror. These were not rescue operations, but a calculated trafficking network run by Walsh himself. Young bobcat cubs stolen from their mothers were bred for profit, their value determined by size and temperament. Those deemed unfit, too small, too wild, too sick, were abandoned to die or hidden in forsaken clearings. As Maria whispered of cages, shipping crates, and clandestine sales to wealthy collectors around the globe, Ben felt a cold fury awaken in him. These cubs, like his Emma, were innocent souls caught in humanity's ruthless schemes. Yet anger alone would not topple Walsh's empire. Built on wealth and secrecy, they would need evidence, allies, and courage. Drawing on his legal past, Ben teamed with Maria to document every atrocity. Camera traps captured merchants in military-style gear, moving crates at dawn. Whistleblower testimonies trickled in. Ben reached out to wildlife agencies, piecing together a mosaic of cruelty that spanned continents and species. Each cell of evidence, each blurred image of frightened eyes, fueled his determination. But it also reopened old wounds, seeming to echo Emma's last moments on that icy road. Their breakthrough came with a grim discovery behind the containers. Dozens of shallow graves, each marked by disturbed earth and fragments of fur. In the moonlight, Ben stood over the tiny mounds, souls discarded like broken merchandise. Had they art? Grief and rage blazed in him, forging a resolve that this injustice would end. Walsh, sensing leaks in his operation, ordered a purge, dispose of anything unsellable. He commanded. When Maria learned that more young lives would be destroyed in preparation for a big shipment, she risked everything, breaking protocol to contact Ben directly. In the pre-dawn hours, federal, state, and local agents converged on the compound. See, Abby. A chaotic raid unfolded under flashing lights, shouting, and the snarls of cornered men. In the melee, Walsh turned violent. Maria, shielding a crate of cubs, was shot. As her life ebbed away in Ben's arms, the community's horror erupted in headlines. What began as a wildlife rescue had become a story of human darkness and heartbreaking sacrifice. In the weeks that followed, the evidence Maria helped gather, sealed forever by her blood, brought Walsh and his network to federal trial. The rescued cubs, now under the care of a wildlife centre, began to heal. The first little Bobcat, still bearing the traces of that autumn night, was named Hope. As she grew into a graceful ambassador for her kind, children pressed their faces to her enclosure glass, listening in rapt silence as guides told of Rex's heroics and Maria's bravery. Ben, witnessing their wonder, felt his own heart stir with purpose. With purpose. Renewed by this work, he returned to environmental law, not as the man who fled grief, but as an advocate fortified by loss and empathy. His testimony shaped new legislation to combat exotic animal trafficking. He travelled to legislatures and conferences, sharing what he and Maria had uncovered, determined no other creature would suffer silently. Rex aged gracefully, his muzzle whitening but spirit undimmed. He remained vigilant, pad to bark, ever ready to answer any silent plea in the woods. When he died at 13, the Wildlife Centre dedicated a memorial garden in his honour, overlooking Hope's enclosure. A simple stone bore Ben's chosen inscription. To those who teach us that love knows no boundaries and courage wears many forms, today, new cubs are born into freedom in those same Montana valleys, their future brighter thanks to sacrifices made under autumn's golden light. Ben still walks the forest at dawn, now accompanied by Rex's grandniece, a bright-eyed pup who bounds ahead, nose to the ground. In the hush of morning, as mist drifts through the trees and light spills over mountain peaks, Ben sometimes swears he hears the echo of Rex's bark carried on the wind, a reminder that compassion can illuminate even the darkest paths. Yes. And that our deepest wounds can become the seeds of our greatest strengths.